Folks, first of all, thank you so much for making it for a post-lunch event. I used to be a debater in school and I always did these post-lunch events. It's where the lull is the highest. But we'll try to keep the energy slightly high and we'll try and sort of get through this by making it more interactive. I really don't enjoy sort of being, one-side speech. And the whole idea of this is to sort of figure out a way in which we can discuss growth levers and also understand what are some things that we might be doing today as brands or some of our portfolio companies in case of, for investors like Arjun, what are we spending time, money, efforts on that we shouldn't have to? That's sort of the focus. But we'll keep it organic. My name is Nitin Joyce. I'm part of the founding team at Bureau. And Bureau's here at the India D2C Summit and Awards event because we have a product called as Blaze, where we essentially have two products. One is a checkout that is blazingly fast, hence the name. But we also have an RTO protection program. We believe that merchants shouldn't be spending unnecessary bandwidth on things that they could be outsourcing to somebody else, and they should sort of focus more on their core competency, which typically is sort of growth. I'd love to sort of start off with Chirag's here, and I've been fanboying because I'm like a huge power user of 4700 BC, and Chirag would love to sort of get the conversation started with you, and sort of could you walk us through what are some growth levers that have worked for your brand? What are some things that you might have done in the past or that you're doing today that have really sort of that rocket ship, hockey stick growth trajectory that your brand has seen? What are some things that have worked for you? Maybe we could pass on a mic for Chirag, please.
I think I can speak now. I think for us, I think our key differentiator always has been our product, right? I mean, that's where we started, right? So I think that's something we are always set as a benchmark at, whenever we launch a new product, whenever we do something, we need to be differentiated in the market. We need to be known that we are the innovators when it comes to product.
Yeah.
So anything we do, like any new launches, so we're getting into chips, right? So chips seems to be like these of bigger, right?
Yeah.
But so once we come out, we will know it's not like any chips which is available in the country. It's very different. There's obviously health angle to it, and there is uniqueness to it, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the way we launch, the way we package, everything is a package. Like the whole ecosystem has to gel together.
True.
And one of the other things, the way we are positioning ourselves is, ability to take a product and market and position it better, right, with our branding. So whether it's chips, right? So it's like, I give you an idea. So it's similar to nachos, but we're still playing in the chips category, right? Because it's a bigger category. We want to not associate just with nachos because it's a very small category also. And tomorrow, if you do much more products into it, and we call it chips plus, as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So
and people just get it, like just
right. I mean, it has to be very simple, very something which strikes them very simple, right? The branding is already there. People remember it some form, but the product we come out needs to also start with the consumer. So that's why we just call it chips plus. And the idea is we continue to launch something in that category also as we grow. But I think just keeping it simple, have a product which is distinguished, and have a strategy to always market and position the product better. What we've been doing with popcorns, I think that's something.
It seems to be working great for you folks.
Yeah, so far I think the journey is still long, but yeah.
No, awesome, Chirag. We'd love to know in your category a quick intro about the brand, of course,
Sure.
and then
Hello everyone, my name is Neha. I'm the co-founder of the Positive Store. It's definitely
Perhaps a mic might help.
Okay, sure.
And also they're recording, I think, so it might just.
Sure. So like I said, my name is Neha. I'm the co-founder of the Positive Store. Like the name says, it's all about positivity. So we are creating a lifestyle brand that focuses on positivity. The whole mission started because when there's so much of negativity out there, we wanted to stand for that one focus word, positivity. So we are creating a lifestyle brand. And another big problem that how we started solving was, we read a lot of self-help and personality development books, but all it remained as gyan. Nothing came out as real practice and how we can build habits. So that's how we took the best of all the books and created planners and journals. So it's been 4 years. We are again top 3 in Amazon, and we have sold almost 70,000 planners.
And what are some growth levers that have sort of worked for you in the past or are working for you right now?
So one of the biggest game changer for us was the unboxing experience, because the messaging was very strong. So every product they buy, once they open the box, it's like you just open the box of possibility. So the messaging became more shareable. That's how the influencer marketing also picked up. So definitely the messaging, the unboxing experience, and the influencer marketing was a huge game changer for our portfolio.
Got it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Sneha.
Thank you.
Arjun, I know that you probably, among all the people that I know, between you and your wife, I think you guys interact with more D2C brands than almost anyone in the country. And I know we have a bunch of mutual friends and we're on a bunch of sort of cap tables as well. But would love to know from your perspective, when you're advising your portfolio companies or when you're hearing back from them via investor updates, what are some things that seem to be working for them in sort of the post-pandemic world, so to speak? I don't know if you're there yet, but just in terms of growth levers, what seems to be working for D2C brands in India?
Yeah, firstly, I've not yet come into that investor type avatar. I feel like I'm still always a founder first. But look, I think from our experience as founders, building a D2C brand when D2C as a term didn't exist, right? So think about 2016, 2017.
I think you were OG. I think you were the earliest.
Yeah, so at that time actually we would say like online only, digital first, right? And the world has changed significantly since then, and so it's not so long ago, but it is really a long time ago, right? Because there was no warehousing automation tools, no aggregators for logistics, no tools like this, and so really it's amazing to see the way the world has changed, right? In D2C, in enablement, etc. like that. What were the growth levers that we used, and what were the biggest problem sets for us, right, as a brand? So I'll talk about first the growth lever. The growth lever was like, okay, this is a digital business. I need to convince a customer to buy online. If I am convincing a customer to buy online, everything is numbers driven, right? Which is not the case in other kinds of business. So I have this customer. This customer has this AOV. I have this gross margin. This is my customer acquisition cost, my logistics cost, and this is my CM1 or CM2 or whatever you call it, right? Can I make that unit economic sheet look good enough that it becomes hyper scalable and replicable? And what are those levers? Is it performance marketing? Is it influencer marketing? Is it brand? But get that right mix of levers to be able to do this. Now, the example of this is Dr. Vaidya's took 1.5 years to reach 50 orders a day, and then 2 years from there to reach 5,000 orders a day. The journey to getting to 50 was actually more important than the journey to getting to 5,000.
It was compounding.
We set up that replicable process of an average order value of 700 rupees, a customer acquisition cost of 35%. Then we said, look, this now makes sense for business. What we are doing now, we have the 100x.
Yeah.
So I think figuring out what that mix of replicable activity is to do it. And so what's not this, right? The opposite of this. Doing a 70% discount on cred for 1 day and using that day's sales as your ARR, that's not sustainable at all. Right? You'll get it for 1 day and then it's not going to happen again. So yes, it's a good lever, but it's a short-term lever. And so when founders come to us as investors with their cred sale for the last 3 days and say, this is my ARR, it's not really sustainable, right? What's the biggest problem? Let's address the elephant in the room. The biggest problem for a D2C brand, according to me, what kept me up at night was team, hiring, scale, etc. All of that. That's all great. But RTO was the biggest problem to me. Now, I was a brand that was 82% outside the top 10 cities, 75 to 80% COD orders, right? What's the challenge with RTO really, right? Look, it sucks to pay freight twice.
True.
That's not the problem. The problem with RTO is not paying double freight. The problem with RTO is you believe your Facebook ads and your Instagram ads and your customer acquisition cost is X, but then 15 days later, you realize it's actually 0.7x. And then you're screwed, right? Because you can't do anything about that.
True.
And so really, if you ask my wife, Trisha, who managed the ops, what's the one thing that kept her up at night? It was RTO.
No, that's awesome. And from Zouk's perspective, would sort of love to know, given sort of your journey and we've seen you sort of explode as a brand now, what Arjun was talking about in terms of, figuring out the sustainable part first and then later, has there been a change in, I would say, the kind of things that keep you up at night as a founder?
I think as long as we're making the customer happy, I'm happy. For us, growth, we've always seen it as 3 broad levers, and this not something I made. Somebody very smarter told me this. I said, "Dekho." He said, break it down into 3 parts. You have product, and whatever you offer on the product side, if you increase, that is going to give you some growth. You have distribution. If you expand on distribution, that's going to give you some growth. But all of this will come once you start building a brand and make it a more powerful thing, because it's growth plus a strong moat as well.
Yeah.
So that's how we've always looked at it. Philosophically, each of these need to make sense, especially the product and the brand need to connect with what we are building. That means my mission statement can't be X and the product can't look like Y. It has to match. It has to blend. So I think when we started with one product and we were 100% D2C brand, right? Frankly, for a good period of time before somebody says, "Why are you doing this? We brand lag raha hai brand jaisa. Why don't you expand distribution?" That's when we started expanding distribution and going into marketplaces.
Yeah.
It's still an online only brand, not done offline yet. So that's another massive lever that we have. All this in a geography which is India, and then we have the entire world to go after. Then there will be expansion in terms of just the line of products that we operate in. Right? Currently, we're in the bags wallet segment, expanding there. Then we'll bring out more categories. That will bring its own growth level.
Yeah.
But we can't do all of this without building a very, very strong brand.
Yeah.
Because then all of this becomes sort of flows into place. And then for all of these things, like Arjun said, you have your entire unit economics, each of the elements in that. How do you ensure your CAC is at 35%, with maybe performance marketing higher, but organic is also there, which compensates, and you see overall sort of ROAS or overall CAC, etc. And same goes for fulfillment and all of that. So I think that's how we've looked at. One is the unit economics, which we track. I like to see this way, that the unit economics of what happened yesterday I track daily.
Yeah.
Right? So did we make money yesterday or not? Right? But the future growth will come by looking at these 2 levers, and that's, I think, my worry sometimes is, are we just going after revenue without thinking of the long-term thing, right? And that's where, when we hire new talent, and that definitely once they come in, it gives us bandwidth to think of, okay, so I can do the more jazzy stuff of talking over here while the team is doing the real work of ensuring today's metric and this quarter's metric is done, while we building the foundation for the.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned the international part, right? Like India, of course, has these challenges, but like the ASAN team is here, and I know you lived in the US for a while.
Yeah.
What are some challenges that you've seen that are, now that you've spent some time in India as well after coming back? What are some things that you see that are, unique to sort of India, or perhaps of the brands that you end up working with? What are some growth levers that you think work really well?
Sure. Again, my name is Murli. I am from Assam. We basically we are not a D2C brand. We want to be the tech stack behind complete alternative to Shopify. The one thing certainly I observed is living in US, the customer expectation, the customer who is coming in India versus the customer in US is entirely different. The experience, what they want, is entirely different. The way we want to build our particular platform is how we want to ensure, say for example, which someone wants to launch a brand. They want to get the best UI, but the cost is kind of among us when they want it. And they want to change the look and feel, say for Diwali or somewhere in Pongal, they want to change the look and feel. They've got to buy another theme or something if they're already stuck up your platform. So what we want to build is a complete, give merchants or whoever is a brand, give them the rich set of UI experience, which they want to offer to their customers. Change the behavior, change the templates, they be the owner of their whole UI experience, the process, they can control themselves. That's been our forefront goal, first to offer this at a very affordable price. And then the second part is educating the customer to tell that you don't need to really pay high amount of bucks what you pay to other platforms. I don't want to demean them, but sure. We personally traveled through this journey, and then we found that this is something which we could offer at a very affordable price, like the world-class technologies, building a nice experience on this. So again, we want to be the tech stack behind some of these brands. We are working towards, we're very young compared to other people, but we are working towards that goal. And we've been here for the past 9 months, and we've seen tremendous response from a lot of young entrepreneurs who actually want to start their brands, and we've been working for them, trying to understand the requirements into that. We're good on integrations. We are completely working on a lot of integrations going forward.
Sure.
But again, our belief in Indian customer versus the global customer is entirely different, and the merchants here are entirely much more savvy, customer savvy than customers outside. So I've seen that big difference.
Abhijeet, you want to sort of give us sort of your vantage point given, so to give all of you a little bit of context, Abhijeet's my colleague, he runs the e-commerce facing business at Euro, which we call Blaze. But Abhijeet also built in his past third watch as part of Razorpay, and so I've sort of seen that journey of D2C in India and the challenges that founders end up facing and ops teams end up facing. From your perspective, what are some things that you've sort of seen in the evolution of that journey change so far? And perhaps you should take a mic and
Thank you so much, folks. Thank you all the entrepreneurs who are here. Frankly speaking, it's a privilege to have a seat with you all and the hard work that you've been doing. Abhijeet this side, thank you so much for the warm intro, Nikhil, as well. So essentially speaking, I think to every D2C brand that they run, and the category itself matters a lot, right? Like what product you're selling, what's the frequency of purchase, what's the user persona, what's the targeted addressable market, right? And clarity in that is like the standard mandatory requirement before we even start thinking about growth or start thinking about the next levels of growth, right? Figuring out that addressable market. Now, what I felt is that structuring of the team in that regard, like because you can't do everything alone. You have to have a team with you. You have to have a support system with you. Right tools alongside with you, right? Set of people who know how the tools work, and so that they're able to perform to their best position in the first place. The idea of having the right set of support system around you, so that you can focus on the broader spectrum problems, as Pradeep pointed out, while the team is able to sustain themselves and handle the day-to-day work as well. So that kind of camaraderie, that kind of positioning enables you to have like a long-term vision of things, right? So I felt that having a support system in the first place is like a very good, segue into focusing on the growth levers. Now, growth can be, again, it's an exploratory task, iterative task, so there's no point generalizing that as such, because having a proper setup of tools, system that frees up your bandwidth to start focusing on things that really matter, right? And then going to the next level of trajectory.
Yeah. That's helpful. Nitin, thank you for joining us. First of all, huge fan of just the brand in general, right? But would love to know in your journey of sort of building Jimmy's Cocktails and sort of and now you've become sort of a national level brand and you've become synonymous with sort of the category.
By the way, they just raised their round, so a round of applause.
Oh, lovely. That's awesome. No, Nitin, would love to know from your perspective, and I'm going to sound a little hyperbolic here, but if there were like a magic wand in general that took away one or two of your problems that are like eating away your bandwidth, it could be bandwidth, it could be expertise on the team that you could be using something else, it could be just like money that you're spending, that would allow you to push on these growth levers. Boldly is a strong term, but more aggressively. What would those look like? Like, what are some problems that you feel your team is facing today that you probably shouldn't be and you should have to sort of outsource it or it should exist?
Thank you so much, guys, for all the love and the support for the brand. See, basically, it is all about the right strategies what you need to follow to build a brand. There are a lot of temptation on a daily basis, right? And sometimes the less is more. You need to stop thinking like what you don't need to do. You need to tell yourself, I will not do these kind of things at all.
Yeah, the not to do list is as important as the to do list.
Is the real important thing, because there are a lot of temptation every day.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what we are doing is because we are focusing on to build up the right set of team. Because see, you need to have a specialized people, and all the team who are really working on their specialization, they will be more productive, right? And hence, the kind of achievements you are achieving on daily basis, on a long-term basis, with all the specialization. So you need to decide few things and do it on a regular basis without diverting your efforts, your focus, and that's the key thing. What we are thinking that we need to do, and also it's a funded company, and then you need to have fund, you need to invest funds in a right manner, because it is not like you have a whole lot of funds. You can do marketing, you can we have raised funds, but with that fund in today's scenario, we can empty that funds in just 3 months time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think. No, that's super helpful, though. But yeah, Chirag, from sort of your perspective, right? Like in your category, and I do know that you guys push on growth levers like a whole bunch. And I don't know how relevant RTO as a problem is for you, but if there are issues that if somebody were to come and say, hey, we'll take care of this, don't worry about this, you just worry about growth sort of thing. What would those be? Is it delivery related? Is it damage related? Is it like returns? Is it RTO? Like, what would those sort of look like, just in terms of challenges?
We have a very different challenge. One of our biggest challenges, obviously, logistics, and we are in food business, right? Our product is volumetric product,
yeah,
right? So sometimes the whole the economic doesn't work for us because the logistic cost is so high, right? So for us, we have to continuously push a pack of 5, pack of 8, and do all that combinations to make sure it works for us, right? And in today's scenario, the RTO returns is like you keep the product, you send your name, right? No point getting it back,
yeah,
right? So we, in a long run, we have to reduce this RTO problem completely because it's just losing money. One is the product which is gone is gone. You have to resend the product also for some reason to the customer, right? So I think getting the right information, right? What is happening, right? Why is the return happening? Is it a consumer problem, right? So one of the things which we get from the current software is also which they're trying to build is customer profiling, right?
Yeah.
So based on past, if this customer have actually returned 50% of the orders, or 80% of the orders, or 100% of the orders, or he's not returning at all, you can actually service the customer better.
No, for sure.
Right? If you know the return ratio is very high, you can actually call the customer before actually shipping the product, right? So I think those level of deeper analysis on a more systematic level, right? While you shipping is really important, right? There could be a red flag in the system, there could be a green flag in the system, and the shipment can go through smoothly. But I think for us, returns doesn't make any sense. So I think it's better if we can do that analysis pre-shipping than actually realizing it later. It's a very cost-effective solution for us. So I think people who are trying to build that solution as we speak, there's some in the market also. But I think the problem will get better and better solved as they have more and more.
200%. I think it's iterative, and one of the things that we've seen from our perspective, Abhijeet's the expert in the house, but like at Bureau, we obviously have a solution around those lines that we built for RTO. But one thing we realized is, and I mean no offense to the e-commerce D2C folks in the room, but this is still day one, and I'm sure most of you agree with me also that this is day one, right? Like we're not there at that level of penetration that any of the founders here want us to be at. For example, the number of D2C shoppers or e-commerce shoppers beyond the marketplaces hits those numbers, the numbers of sort of mobile penetration or internet penetration is the day we can all celebrate. But until then, we're still sort of expanding that pie, so to speak. You bring up an interesting point in terms of customer profiling. One thing that's worked for us, and I don't know, it might be relevant to a bunch of you as well, is to solve that cold start problem by looking outside of e-commerce. The issue with sort of looking at purely e-commerce is you're pigeonholed into looking at that same audience again and again. One thing that we end up doing at Blaze and at Bureau is essentially we partner with all the major telcos in India, right? Like, so, I could just do a survey in the room right now, and I'm sure most of us have phone numbers that have been with us for at least a decade, if not more. It's something that you don't change; it becomes part of your identity. And there's so much sort of insight you can cull from, a 10-year-old phone number is a lot more trustworthy than like a 10-day-old phone number. And so, whether you want to ship a product or not can be done on the basis of that. Or it could be an email address, right? Like, is there a corporate email address, personal email address, all of these parameters. So I think one of the things that we are doing at Bureau is trying to, of course, respect the e-commerce ecosystem and look at past shipping data and customer behavior and all of that sort of stuff and give you insights. But what's also helped us, and perhaps it could help in your business,
put a separate team to actually double check. During seasons, we have to overhire our team, and that is a constant thing that we're doing. At this phase, when we're trying to scale and bring up the new product ranges, this is definitely something that we'll have to address.
Yeah. But Pradeep, from Zouk's perspective, apparel industry is one that we work with like a bunch anyway. But do you see consumer behavior, like for example, COD, right? Like the big problem today, and Arjun will agree with me here, is you want to nudge as many users as possible to prepay rather than sort of have COD. And from what I have seen, and I'm a newbie when it comes to this, the thesis is that there's a trust deficit. A user, if they believe in your brand or if they know you, if they repeat, it's more likely that they actually prepay for it. The first time if I'm doing an impulsive purchase on Instagram and I don't even know if this thing's will, like when in mango season, I get like 20 Alfonso mango ads a day. I don't know which of them are going to come, right? Like I don't know if that's why I would do COD, but I'm sure there are multiple reasons. From your perspective, is that something you track? You seem like a numbers guy. Is that something you track in terms of your prepaid versus COD orders, and does that affect your returns policy and all that?
He has amazing numbers on prepaid. I was discussing it before this session.
We were discussing as well. I wanted to understand actually why COD happens first place, and then why an RTO on COD happens. And I was discussing with him, right, in terms of saying, okay, is somebody placing a COD order because they're worried that after placing the order, the product will not reach me, or is it कि मैं cash का धंधा करता हूँ तो I want to pay out in cash, right? And what I understood from our customer base is the metro audience is like, and this is pre-UPI days, where they're like, I have to go get my card from the wallet which is in the other room. Let me do COD, I have cash to pay when they come. Yeah, they'll bring the POS machine and I'll pay. Right? So, Tier 1 customer base was more convenience and hence COD. Amongst folks who are doing COD.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
And Tier 2 onwards, it's a trust one, right? But what I failed to understand even at that point, because there's complete heartburn where you acquired a customer, brand awareness create kiya, CAC pay kiya, they came, you showed everything, nudged them, abandoned cart, all of that you did to get the order. Product goes all the way out there and at the doorstep it gets returned. And let's say it's doorstep return, it's not one of those delivery partners who marked as I tried but didn't happen, but there was no real call and all of that. Right? That's where I was trying to sort of understand, why that fails, and I still not sort of understood why that happens. Where they see the, a product in a brand's white poly bag or whatever designer ये bag मैंने order किया, bag size का कुछ आया है, right? And it matches the SMS that I got, but still they'll be like नहीं चाहिए अभी.
Yeah.
I think the answer there lies in sort of just the amount of time it took for the order to reach them. And that's when we broke down and said, okay, let's look at factors we control. Things like the date of order to date when it was dispatched. Because we're all very analytical when it comes to sort of customer acquisition.
Sure.
But when it comes to all of these ops stuff, it's like, hey, sab gaya kya gaya? ठीक है, कुछ बचा हुआ है. You track that maybe once a week. And we were doing that mistake, right? Now we do that daily, etc. To say, कितने time में निकला warehouse से, measure that.
Yeah.
Are we dispatching everything in 24 hours or not? If not, are we doing any sort of communication or not? If it's not automated, put a person to call, right?
Yeah.
Might not be the most ideal solution, but we'll figure, like Arjun said, we'll figure out the unit economics, bitha denge, and then we'll put tech on it. But till then, at least do this. Communicate if there's a delay in dispatch, etc.
Yeah.
We've done that now, which at least the person on the other side is like, okay, late aa raha hai. Some of them say, fir nahi chahiye.
Yeah.
At least you don't pay the forward and reverse, and then we say, okay, we'll contact you later. You're in our retargeting list for different channels through which you'll get something after 30 days, 60, 90, etc. But that's how we sort of dissected that part of it. But again, we are a prepaid heavy business, so this is one of the smaller ones, but we'll have to nibble through each of the funnel gaps as we sort of face other pressures and conversion rates.
Yeah. Arjun, quick question on something that Pradeep mentioned. You always as a brand have a choice between, intrusive is a strong word, but having these friction points just to ensure that things are going in a kind of a flow that you want, right? Like it's about how seamless you want the experience to be, but at some points you need to add necessary and strategic friction just to make sure that you're in the same. What is your sort of framework to decide कि कहाँ पे SMS भेजना है, कहाँ पे WhatsApp भेजना है, कहाँ नहीं बेचना है, and you know, sort of, when are you pushing the envelope and when are you not, and how do you sort of decide that?
So I think, look, a very, very good question. And I think for all of us who are building brands where the customer base goes beyond us, right? Because the biggest problem, the biggest mistake a founder will make, and Nitin and I have discussed this a lot as well, is you believe the customer is you and behaves like you, right? So what was Dr. Vaidya's? It was a new age Ayurvedic products brand that reached 16,500 pin codes in this country, 60% of the pin codes in this country. 82% of the orders were outside top 10 cities. The customer did not behave like me. And so when I say, I hate getting a call and I want to get a WhatsApp and I don't like SMS, that's not the way my customer
It's an assumption.
And so, I used to get a 6 to 7x ROI on every call I made for a repeat purchase, right? So I think, don't believe the customer behaves like you, number one. Number two, just on what Pradeep said, right? Control what's in your control. What is in your control? The experience before the order happens.
Yeah.
The experience after the order happens.
True.
But look, when the RTO happens, exactly as Pradeep said, we don't spend enough time figuring out why it happened, right? And so, like, small things that we used to do. If you RTO'd a product, right? Like, we call you, you won't answer, we try to WhatsApp you, etc. I'd send an email.
Nice.
Now, obviously, it was an email that was templatized, etc. But there was an email coming from the CEO of the company saying, I just want to know what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes that helps you figure out the delivery guy didn't go there,
Yeah.
right? And so, that's the highest intent customer. You spend money on them, you spend logistics twice, but maybe there's still some of them that want to buy a product. So you should do something for those customers.
No, for sure. Is Gaurav from Flow here?
He's not coming.
He's not coming. But like one thing I would love to understand is sort of, you know, as you go through the pricing point, right? Like when it's a average ticket size is small to large, how does sort of behavior change? And I guess like with Zouk, I'm sure you have like different SKUs and you're now expanding into sort of larger. Are there things that you worry about more as the price point increases, or does it become bigger pain point as the pricing increases?
No, I think pricing is still a more relative thing. I mean, I think our TG is still the same, whether we sell a under $1,000 wallet or we sell a under $2,000 bag. We still understand we are relatively slightly more higher priced than regular, and there are some brands.
You would call this a premium product or mass premium?
Mass premium. I think premium still higher range and luxury is.
Luxury to choda.
We don't want to put a crocodile skin on that.
Sure.
But in the mass premium side, I think we're still acting the same TG, and it's a more relative thing. I think I was talking to a very interesting. He said, I forgot, soda types product, but with sort of flavors, right? Something
Pop, yeah.
So he was telling his pricing very interesting. He said Coke is priced at $40, another mixer somebody's priced at $80, so I'm pricing it at $60.
Yeah, they compete with Diet Coke basically. I'm like a huge customer, but it's between Diet Coke and them for me.
So I think in every customer there is a relative price point in mind कि हाँ अगर पार्ले जी ₹5 ₹10 whatever है तो फिर this one is more premium glucose biscuit तो ₹8, right? And they might still be paying whatever ₹50 for Bourbon equivalent product and all that. So that's how we look at it. We don't have a wallet customer is different from a bag customer, and that will still remain as what we do for our other products as well. Because targeting two different TGs, like I said, mass premium and premium है completely different DNA, and I believe that DNA is very important, right? And I always tell when other founders कि तुम्हारा DNA क्या है, especially in SaaS for example, right?
Yeah.
So come from SaaS background, the past say ये तुम्हारा DNA product-led growth है, so you give a lot of free trial and get people to use the product, and then you do everything that drip to get them to further bottom in the funnel. If you're sales heavy guy, then you do enterprise and sort of do that really well. Don't forget PLG. So I think that DNA is very critical, and hence that's our sort of thought process.
Pradeep, I wish I met you 10 years ago. Like I keep talking about this, I've started a bunch of companies through the last decade plus, but I think as an industry in general or as a people, we end up focusing so much on product market fit because that's sort of romanticized that you don't think about founder market fit. And it's so important that the right person starts the right company, right? Like it's like look at Arjun, right? Like 6th generation, like and those sort of things are super important. Because if it's not in your DNA, then you don't have that edge where you're treating it as a game and for somebody else it's work. And so everything, right, from the levers you use to sort of like the kind of people you hire to augment your team, everything depends on sort of what your DNA is and the brand's DNA.
I'll add one thing here. Some folks from my D2C cohort are here, right? So in the first or second week, we say, hey, you think about a product, right? You say, hey, what's the problem? What's my solution?
Yeah.
And then, why am I the best to solve this problem? So, example would be, hey, there is a problem in space tech. I conjured up this solution.
Sure.
I'm not a aeronautical engineer or aerospace engineer. So I can't solve it, right?
No, 100%.
So there are problems that I have today
Yeah.
that I can't solve, but I'm the right person to solve.
No, 100%. And you know, this is a framework that I learned in. I went through Techstars, which is sort of an accelerator program as well. They call it like the W3 framework. Who are you selling to? What are they buying from you? Not what are you selling to them. What are they buying from you? And why are they buying from you? Like if you have a clear answer to these 3 questions, your strategy when it comes to growth and whether you are the right person or the right team to be building something becomes super relevant. Abhijeet, do you want to spend like 5 minutes just talking about what we're building on Blaze, and then we can take a few questions on that front as well? To give you a little bit of context on who we are, what we're doing, we're sort of a team of people who basically built a bunch of businesses and understood that there's always a fight between friction and fraud or gaming the system, right? Like as founders, as product people, we always want to answer one simple question: is the person who's buying from me trustworthy or not at each step of the user journey? And the more trustworthy your user is, the more you want to reward them. And usually rewards, obviously we talk about cashbacks and that and this and all of that, but the best reward you can give somebody is a slick experience, and that's what users crave for. So where do you put that friction, and where do you sort of reward them with like a friction-free experience is sort of what we obsess about at Bureau. And so when Abhijeet came to a bunch of us within the team and said, hey, folks, we're already building a bunch of stuff on fintech, crypto, BFSI, all of that. But e-commerce is an industry that he was familiar with, and a bunch of us others in the team as well were familiar with. We decided to sort of use the same principles to sort of start building Blaze to work on some of the top problems that D2C founders have. But Abhijeet, over to you, and then we'd love to take some questions and have more of an informal Q&A as well.
Thank you, Nikhil. I think I won't keep it very long. It's just a basic idea. And again, you give a little bit of backstory, right? So just to share a couple of anecdotes, right? So in my previous job at Bhardwaj, right? A lot of the clients that we work with, the main problem with RTO was generalization. Like you'd think, RTO would work in a way for a business who's operating like probably in North India, selling probably like fashion apparel business. And even fashion apparel is like a broad category. There are like many sub-verticals with different nuances, different problems. The devil was always in the details, like understanding how and what your RTO has happened to. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of patience, it took availability of data, and it took a strategic approach at an operational and your marketing level, like who you are targeting versus what the impact is happening at an operational level, and how the feedback flowing from that way to eventually to your final targeting strategy, right? And that was the crux of RTO as a problem, right? And again, it's pretty broad, depending on what business you're operating, which domain of country you're operating in, and what kind of product you're selling, what frequency of buying behavior you're expecting from people, it can drastically vary. And which is also the reason that a lot of time when this problem is solved, it's solved at an operational layer itself. Because those nuances, you set up a calling machinery, you set up like a bifurcation machinery, and that's where the problem starts up. Because as you scale up, what you're experiencing at 100 orders a day is not going to be the same what you're going to do at 1,000 orders a day, at 10,000 orders a day, and beyond that as well. So quickly talking about the idea of Blaze was, we wanted to give you a complete focus. As a founder, you should be focusing on growth. Because that is the beautiful part of it, because that is iterative, and that is what is taking a lot of your time and bandwidth, figuring out your levers, figuring out what channels are working for you. While this nuance of RTO, this nuance of people opting for cash on delivery is something that you can offload as a task that is running like an automated fashion in the back operations. The idea was that would free up your bandwidth to think about growth. That would free up your bandwidth to figure out your customer, figure out your brand. And that's like where the actual, help from a tool point of view can be derived from the same thing. So essentially speaking, biggest problem with understanding an RTO for your business happens to be that we have to spend time with you, right? I cannot come to you today and say, oh, boss, you work in this category, this geography. I know your problem, I'll solve for you. That's not how it works. It takes time. It takes iterations. It takes understanding what is working for you, what is not working for you. Maybe for some customers, address is a huge problem. Like where your people are adding addresses that are not deliverable. Maybe you need to, augment them when calling the customers. Some people, you might just be facing RTOs from 5-6 different pin codes. So maybe blacklisting those pin codes would actually help you out. Some people, it might be the delivery provider you're using. So maybe just switching from ExpressBees to Blue Dart, I'm not taking any names, might just help in, stopping RTO in the first place. So it's not just a question of like who, what, when, it's also a question eventually about like how it's impacting your net business. So that's where the tool basically comes in. But that's where we understand that you don't have time as a business and you don't have the patience. So that's where our skin in the game idea comes into place. So we have wrapped RTO around a tool that enables us to participate as an insurance provider to you and your business in form of a guarantee. Which means that my tool basically flags the order as red or green. For all the green flagged orders which are marked as safe, I give you a protection. So in case the order gets RTO'd, I reimburse the forward and the reverse logistics cost to your business, inadvertently helping you save money and basically, helping find some value in the time that you're putting in the tool in the first place. So that's a commitment that I show in the first place. But the idea is to not just reduce your net RTO, the idea is to improve your deliverability as well. Where the main idea comes in, that can I nudge more and more users towards doing a prepaid transaction? Can I, maybe change the behavior at a fundamental checkout level itself, where I can ask the user to go for a prepaid transaction instead of just going for a cash on delivery transaction. And that's where the combination of a checkout and RTO comes into place, right? Please note, as Nitin mentioned, we have traditionally been a fintech focused company, and that's where the those are founded on, and that's where the core product is based out of. With e-commerce coming to fore, there is an enriched data that we have from working with giants like fintech, like PhonePe, Arpila Life Insurance, ICICI Prudential. What happens with these clients is that there is a ton of good customer information that we have. With expanding this information, helps us nudge users into doing a prepaid transaction at a checkout level itself. This kind of thing has a both top-down and a bottom-up part. Bottom-up, we are helping you figure out the right sets of operational tools to calling your customer, improving deliverability. Top-down, we are helping you nudge more and more users toward doing a prepaid transaction. And that's how we are just getting started, right? Because the idea for Blaze as a whole is to give a holistic protection to your business. So apart from RTO, there are other cost centers in your business as well. Like customers do a lot of returns. Customers tend to,
How do you know?
So this is again, Arjun, this is something that we combine the power of one-tap login that we do with the telco providers as well.
I can jump in here. So basically, we partner with all the major telcos, certainly in India and mostly globally as well. We're GSMA partners. So telcos have always had this technology where telcos are the ones who, I know if any of you recently bought a phone or a SIM card, or if you remember the last time that you put a SIM card in a phone for the first time, this is 5 rupee SMS that goes out to update your GPRS settings, right? That's essentially the way that the telco is understanding that they can give you access to your 3G data or 4G data. What's happening at that layer is essentially there's a marriage of the network layer, the SIM layer, and the device layer happening. And so the telco always knows what your IP address is on your mobile data and a bunch of other parameters. So they're able to reverse engineer what your phone number is. What we've done is we've productized that in collaboration with all the major telcos, where a user would enter her phone number, she would hit the login button, but instead of triggering an SMS OTP, it triggers a backend API call, which goes and hits the telco servers. And the telco then tells us if the phone number they are detecting is the one that the user entered on the front end or not. And
this if the phone is stolen?
If the phone is stolen, even your SMS is gone, right? Like they have access to SMS anyway.
So basically, they do IMSI, which is SIM
yes.
IMEI versus IMSI check audit.
It's called header enrichment. In technical terms, it's header enrichment is the term that they end up using. So, and the setup process happens in under a second. So, from a user experience perspective, it's super slick, right? Like, so customer experience becomes awesome. And also, it's a lot safer because there's no man in the middle, hijacking, spoofing, none of those attacks are susceptible. Or like Chirag and I are like next to each other. If I know Chirag's number, I enter his number on my phone. I peep into his Apple Watch or I peep into his phone and I get that 4-digit, I'm in. That doesn't happen because it's sort of married to this. So, a bunch of our customers, sort of like even ICICI, new age startups like India Gold, Mark, Khayal, all of them are already users of ours. So, we do that on sign up and sign in. We've now sort of moved because we're dogfooding our own product and we've used that in our checkout experiences. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. So I think that's pretty much it on the product front. Let me show you a screen like how it goes. Like the entirety of RTO production is functioning like a guarantee program. So in this way, like as you get onboarded, there is a 90-day timeline that we give to your business, in which there are 6 iterations. In every cycle, we basically recalibrate like what's been the RTO performance of our system in prediction, whether it's a red or green. For every red order, we also mark is why we think this order is suspicious. So problem of or users playing multiple orders in a short span of time. Problem where addresses looks incomplete for that matter. Like if there's a street name missing, there's a landmark missing. People have just tried ABCD test AB123 in the order in the address itself. In case the customer has had history of past RTO in the network of users that we have. In case the customer has a past RTO history on your own brand. So all that information again is something that we keep into account while we're doing that analysis. On top of that, we also do a behavioral analysis on the site, which means that if you, as a user, is coming on the site and within 5 seconds they're placing the order, then that's also something that we capture by the virtue of the browser fingerprinting. Understanding that how fast the user is moving between screens, so that's also one of the parameters. But it's again, one size doesn't fit all, so it gets calibrated over time. As you spend more time with the product, as more and more users come in, as more feedback data flows in, every 15-20 day delivery cycle, the performance of the system improves upon time.
And honestly, like the thesis here for us is very simple, right? Like we've seen SaaS tools and we've built and used SaaS tools where you have a black box approach where there's just a tool that's telling you ki, this is my recommendation, you trust it. And if you just empathize a little with the user of the tool, you'll be like, why would I do that? You're just telling me it's a black box, right? Like so that going one step beyond, actually 2 steps beyond here. In our case, one thing we like to do is of course give a reasoning, because the person on the other side is a human being who's smart and they probably understand more about their user than we do. So you need to give them a reason code. And unless you put money where your mouth is, it's not fun. It's just not fun. So for us, the whole idea is, in order for us to, and we keep joking, internally our joke is that we help D2C founders sleep better, because we just want to make sure that whatever the big headache is, you take that away and you tell them paisa wapas de denge. And then they don't need to worry about it. It's happened. We actually had like 2 or 3 of our customers walk up to our stall and just give us these raving reviews, and so glad offline events are back for that reason. But yeah, I think that's part of our DNA, that hey, if I say something, there should be some weight behind the words, and the best way to do that is to have skin in the game. Thanks talent for that term, I guess, but yeah.
I think that basically covers it. And again, check out the front-facing products which interacts with the customer. It's again primarily it's compatible with all the major platforms like Shopify, WooCommerce. We're also rolling out a Magento and PrestaShop version very soon. It's also compatible with any of the back office tools you might be using, any of the provider that you'll be working with, any kind of abandoned checkout messaging you'll be doing with. So you don't have to rethink of your brand image. It's something that works in the shadows and helps out in case whenever needed.
And also we realize that the most expensive thing all of us have is technical bandwidth today. Short of having a Maruti Omni and kidnapping engineers, all of us face that issue. So we try to make the integrations also as simple as possible. It has to happen within 10-15 minutes or so.
So yeah, folks, that's pretty much it. And I think open for questions on this at this point. Heard mostly about the product. Yeah.
Do we have any premium D2C brand founders here? Of course, I do consider your brand to be premium, by the way. I had to sell a company to start affording these things, but are there other sort of premium brands in the house? Jimmy's is also sort of, right?
No. We want
Definitely.
Actually, I think it's quite often that we end up on.
100 rupees to talk to is not free.
Yeah, what goes with it is free. Yeah. No, that is for sure. No, thank you so much. I think this has been a lot of fun. We're around. We have a stall here. We're happy to answer any more questions.
I have one question. So basically, we were talking about all the saying why is really important to understand what is why is this consumer is doing artificial intelligence. So sometimes it is also do you have that kind of thing? Is there why in building in your system
Abhijeet, you want to take that?
Like for example, I will give you one example of mine. Because there is operation teams doing only operations. They don't use their brain. They only use their hand and legs. So in our operational team, we're basically doing supplies, giving managing all the warehousing, giving product to the logistic partners. He started saying, "Sir, RTOs बहुत बढ़ गए हैं, ट्रिपल हो गए हैं, पहले 10 आते थे, अभी 30 आ रहे हैं." But then he didn't realize that the overall business increasing multiple of 12.
Yeah.
Why?
So the ratio,
the percentage is really minimal.
Yeah,
and in his mind, उसके mind में ये था कि यार business is not happening because we are losing money because RTOs are increasing and everything. While in overall thing, so that's what you have said, Arjun, that why is really important.
Yeah.
And looking at the insight, so there are a lot of data. If you are not using that data, what is in that data, what are the percentage of total things, is really important to understand.
What is relevant?
What is relevant is more important.
Yeah, it's a curation.
Because so much of data is also dangerous.
True.
So that's how do you have built something in your system which actually tells people, please don't do operation work. I will also tell you why this is important.
Yeah, no, actionable insights is sort of our need.
Absolutely. So in this regard, in the tool per se, there is a complete backend operations layer, which is basically like a place where your team can see the results for the analysis in the first place. Now, analysis has basically 3 segments, which is very operational because almost everyone here has an operations team that's doing calling for cash on delivery orders, right? And when you're doing the calling, you would call the customer and say, "Aapko order chahiye ki nahi?" Customer will say yes, and you'll ship it. 99% ye hoga. Or by the way, this is for the 10% customers who pick up the call. The remaining 90% will not even pick up. So hit rate big number. Now, what we do is that at an order level, if we flag an order as suspicious, we tell you that, boss, there's something wrong with the order, but this is what I think is wrong with the order. So if the address looks incomplete, a pointed question to the customer can be asked, can you enrich the address a little more? Can you give me a landmark that I can embed in the order? That's the first part. Second is, if customer has done past RTOs before, that percentage is also listed. Okay, 8 deliveries from this customer successful, 2 are RTO'd. Do you want to take the risk or not? Right. At this point, when you're calling the customer, you can be absolutely sure. Even point it out. Ask for those RTO. You want to receive it or not? Right. Then the third level becomes, okay, if the customer has shopped really fast, then on the call itself, a little bit of upselling, a little bit of cross-selling can also happen. Right? You can then embed that process as well. Okay, you shop really fast. Did you really check out other products as well or not? A little bit of smarter calling, smarter operations can be introduced at that level based on the insights that you're receiving at an order level. Similarly, a lot of customers mess up the address. They enter a pin code of Mumbai and deliver an order in Uttar Pradesh. That's a good possibility. Those kind of things can be corrected. Customer can place double order by mistake. First order confirmation you didn't see, second order you placed. 2 orders are there. You can call them and ask, you want to cancel one order, not cancel one order. So those kind of nuanced insights are something that will actually help you solve it. But again, not 100% solving it, because unless you reduce the portion of cash on delivery coming on your site, actual impact is something that will always be not visible. So the idea is, okay, can you do both bottom up and top up?
You guys have a limit or a minimum number of orders per day a brand should do to get into this product?
No.
We, as a tool, and investor hat here, right? Someday these people are going to be big, right? I'm sure you started off with a small number of orders per day. I think it's elitism if you say we'll only work with people who have 500 orders, 1,000 orders per day or whatever. Everybody starts off small, you got to start then, and the earlier the better, honestly. You get to learn more in the early stages, and that, like you, I think one of you mentioned that 0 to 50 orders per day, that chasm is super important. If you can sort these issues, then nothing like it. So, and in fact, even there, like one of the things that we get asked, and the reason some tools don't work in that is because of, there's a cold start problem, we don't have enough data. But because we have external insights, you know, we work with telcos, we work with other companies, all of that, and we have those feedback loops coming in, you're never really starting on ground zero with us, because we do have some insights to offer even on day zero, and then we build on top of that, and we're okay losing a little bit of money in our learning process.
And the second point you made around 8 out of 10 were successful, is that for same brand or across all brands and places?
Yeah, across all brands, because there's no point showing you like selective insights, but we do only share insights, like we don't share which all brands are there, so it's just...
We don't want to give anybody an unfair competitive advantage, but the network effect has to benefit everybody there is. Collective wisdom of the group benefits every new entrant, and every new entrant benefits from the collective wisdom of the group.
I have a question. Someone else, please.
Sure, please.
Yeah. मेरा नाम आदिल कादरी है, आदिल कादरी ब्रांड है। हम लोग परफ्यूम, रोल ऑन परफ्यूम में डील करते हैं। हमारा प्रोडक्ट स्टार्ट होता है 450 से। तो ये कुछ एप्लीकेशंस जो पहले आए थे, ये रेजर देखा या दूसरे भी और 3-4 है, तो हम लोग अभी नहीं यूज़ कर रहे हैं। उसके कुछ रीज़न है, वो बताऊँगा। उसका आपका आंसर क्या है वो मुझे जानना है। तो ज़्यादातर ये होता है कि जो रेड मार्क बता रहे हैं कि हाई आरटीओ, तो हाई आरटीओ में ऐसा होता है कि हमने एक एक्सपेरिमेंट किया है कि जितना आरटीओ दिखा रहा है सॉफ्टवेयर सबको भेजा है, तो उसमें से सिर्फ 10-15 आरटीओ हुआ, बाकी का सारा हो गया, मतलब डिलीवर हो गया। तो कहीं ना कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं हो रहा कि हम लोग वो कस्टमर को ड्रॉप कर रहे हैं हमारी ब्रांड में आने के लिए। दूसरा ये है कि हाई आरटीओ दिखाता है, लेकिन वो हमारे पास्ट कस्टमर जिनका सारा डिलीवरी हुआ है, मतलब एक कस्टमर है वो सब जगह पे आरटीओ करेगा, लेकिन डॉक्टर वैद्य में उसको अस्थमा का इश्यू है, नहीं मेरे को अस्थमा है, मेरे को चाहिए दवाई, मतलब तो दवाई लेगा। तो प्रोडक्ट टू प्रोडक्ट वेरी है वो ना कहीं। तो वो ये एक है। और दूसरा ये सॉफ्टवेयर की जो चार्जेस, आपका पता नहीं कैसे वर्क कर रहा है, वो 4 रुपया 5 रुपया पर ऑर्डर वो लोग ले रहे थे। तो 2-3 महीना हमने यूज किया, जितना खर्चा सॉफ्टवेयर पे हुआ ना, तो इतना अगर हम लोग सारा आरटीओ बेच भी देते 30%, तो भी इतना खर्चा नहीं होता। मानो कि एग्जाम्पल है, लाख रुपया वेस्ट जा रहा है आरटीओ में, तो यहाँ 1.5 लाख रुपया खर्चा हो रहा है। तो कहीं ना कहीं हमको कंपनी आंसर करेगी कि सर वो डिलीवरी जाके आ जाता है तो इंप्रेशन बिगड़ता है, वो ठीक है, वो भी अपनी जगह पे सही है। तो मेन मेरा क्वेश्चन ये कहीं ना कहीं, और अभी तो जो सॉफ्टवेयर थे वो बता रहे थे कि आरटीओ मत भेजो, अभी आपका जो सिस्टम है वो तो शायद रोक देगा कस्टमर को वहीं पे सीओडी करने से, तो शायद वहीं से ड्रॉप हो जाए। तो कहीं ना कहीं ये सॉफ्टवेयर यूज करने से ऐसा तो नहीं हो रहा कि हम लोग पोटेंशियल हमारे कस्टमर या विजिटर्स को कस्टमर होने से रोक रहे हैं, मतलब ये पूरा सिस्टम ऑल ओवर इंडिया में बन जाएगा। तो मानो एक कस्टमर ऐसा है जो फुल आरटीओ हो रहा है उसका, लेकिन क्या मतलब उसको सब छोड़ देंगे, मतलब हमको भी फिर एट द एंड कस्टमर चाहिए, उसके लिए आपका क्या आंसर है?
एक करके आंसर क्वेश्चन। पहला क्वेश्चन है क्या आपको डे 0 पे हम जो ऑर्डर रेड मार्क कर रहे हैं आपको रोकना है? आंसर है नहीं, क्योंकि हमारा सिस्टम आपके लिए भी ट्यून नहीं है। आपका आरटीओ सिस्टम मुझे नहीं पता कितना आप कहाँ डिलीवर करते हो, किस एरिया में करते हो, कितना आपके पास आरटीओ हुआ है, कितना पहले हुआ है, आई डोंट हैव नो क्लू अबाउट इट। तो मैं पहले स्टार्ट करता हूँ कि ऐसा करते हैं, हम इसको स्टार्ट करते हैं, फ्लैगिंग स्टार्ट करेंगे, हम उसको ग्रीन फ्लैग करेंगे, रेड फ्लैग करेंगे ऑन द अंचेस दैट आई हैव सीन, उसको फिर इम्प्रूव करेंगे। हर 15 दिन में मैं आपसे फीडबैक डेटा लूंगा, मैं उसको एनालिसिस को इम्प्रूव करूंगा। आप सब शिप करो, आप कुछ ब्लॉक मत करो, बट शिपिंग करने से पहले आपका टीम जो कॉलिंग कर रहा है उसको मैं इनसाइट्स दूंगा। आप इनसाइट के बेसिस पे अपना डिलीवरी % इंक्रीज करो, आप रोको कुछ मत। दैट्स द फर्स्ट इंडिकेटिव थिंग दैट आई टेल यू। यू डोंट हैव टू स्टॉप एनीथिंग ऑन डे 0, डे 15 और डे 30। पहला महीना आपको कुछ नहीं रोकना है, आप केवल हमारा इनसाइट स्टडी करो, आप पहले ट्रस्ट बिल्ड करो। आपको लग रहा है गलत आ रहा है, वो फीडबैक डेटा हमारे पास आएगा, दैट विल इंप्रूव अपॉन दैट। तो दैट्स द फर्स्ट स्टेप। फर्स्ट स्टेप इज बिल्डिंग ट्रस्ट विद योर बिजनेस। इनसाइट सही होगा तभी आप उस पर ट्रस्ट करो, नहीं सही है आप उस पर ट्रस्ट मत करो। दैट्स द बेसिक लिमिटेशन, फर्स्ट थिंग। सेकंड थिंग इज दैट आवर प्राइसिंग मॉडल इज बेस्ड ऑन इंश्योरेंस। अगर मैंने उसको ग्रीन फ्लैग किया, आपने उसको शिप किया और आपका आरटी हुआ, दैट्स ऑन मी। आई विल गिव यू द शिपिंग फॉरवर्ड एंड लॉजिस्टिक चार्जेस। अगर आपका 10% आरटीओ मंथ ऑन मंथ पिछले सालों से हो रहा है, I won't flag more than 15% of your orders. तो आपका 85% orders आपका safe है. आप आँख बंद करके उसको shipping करोगे, उसका RTO होगा. That is something that I'll pay. But मेरा focus ये नहीं है. आपको free का पानी देना नहीं है. मेरा focus है आपका deliverability increase होना चाहिए. तो उसके लिए मैं आपको insight दूंगा. That is like the fundamental idea. अब वो insight को improve करना है. मेरे को ये नहीं कि आपको customer drop कराना है. मेरा फंडा ये है कि यार अगर आप 70% order deliver कर पा रहे हो, can I go up to 85%? So those extra 50% कहाँ से आएंगे कि यार जहाँ पे reluctant customer है या जहाँ पे थोड़ा customer है जिसने मस्ती में order place कर दिया है वो अपना बच जाए. अब कुछ पिन कोड ऐसा होगा जहाँ पर हमेशा मेरे को पता है RTO होता है तो मैं आपको अलर्ट करेगा कि यार यहाँ पर इस पिन कोड पे मैंने देखा है पास्ट में बहुत RTO होते हैं. कोशिश करो तो मत भेजो, अगर भेज रहे हो तो कॉल करके भेजो. राइट. रेड फ्लैग इंडिकेटर ये नहीं है कि आप उसको शिप ही मत करो क्योंकि कोई मेरे पास भी कोई क्रिस्टल बॉल नहीं है. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे मैं भी स्मार्ट बनूंगा जैसे आपका सिस्टम स्मार्ट होगा. मुझे पता लगेगा कि आप किस टाइप के कस्टमर टारगेट कर रहे हो. अब आपका 90% अगर क्राउड अगर वेस्ट बंगाल झारखंड बिहार से आ रहा है राइट तो डेफिनेटली यार मेरा सिस्टम भी उसको फ्लैग करेगा. बट फिर मैं समझूंगा कि अच्छा उसमें नुआंस क्या है. लाइक आर यू शिपिंग ओनली टू कस्टमर्स इन वेयर यू नो यू हैव सम लैंडमार्क प्रेजेंट और नॉट. क्या अगर मैं इसमें लैंडमार्क इन्वेस्ट करके आपको बता सकता हूँ शिप करने के लिए. सो ये इनसाइट जो है ये टाइम के साथ इंप्रूव होगा. प्रॉब्लम ये था आपने जो पास्ट में टूल यूज किए सर द टाइम वाज इट वाज नॉट पर्सनलाइज्ड टू यू. It was generic. The idea is to get as much personalization as possible. How long it takes? So we have devised that time. Her 15 days, every shipping cycle, the improvement has to happen. Or improvement will be for your business itself. So what you are using for your business might not work for someone else. So उसके लिए फिर एक अलग level customization. That's the first part. Second part is the pricing of the product, right? So pricing I only do on cash on delivery. क्योंकि उस पे I'm giving you an insurance on top of it. So that is how the model works. Again. उसमें भी मतलब there is a cap I give you in the first place. Okay, beyond a particular price I won't charge you. So if it doesn't make economical sense for your business, आपका RTO हो रहा है X का और अगर मैं आपसे 1.5x charge कर रहा हूँ, there is no economical sense that makes to you. So for me, the idea is it should always be lesser than the RTO cost that you are bearing in the first place. So that's how the pricing model is also done. So the entirety of the objective of the tool is that yeah, the deliverability rate आपको बढ़ाना है. प्रीपेड टू सीओडी में प्रीपेड का पोर्शन का आपको बढ़ाना है. आपका आरटीओ अपने आप कम है. एज यू स्केल आप 2x 3x करो, आप डॉक्टर वैद्य का स्केल पे जाओ. दैट इज व्हाट वी एक्चुअली वांट. मतलब सस्टेनेबिलिटी शुड बी देयर बट दैट यू शुड नॉट बी वरीइंग फॉर बॉटम लाइन. दैट्स द बॉटम लाइन.
Want to be respectful of time. Sorry, we can take one last question, but we want to be respectful of time.
Sorry, maybe you decide otherwise the question maybe not well. So, question, suggestion, and seeking for reflection. So, basically, till now, I sell broadband from business standpoint. So, like the way we have RTO out here, we have something called login activation, which means that we log in a customer, and then that customer denies saying, "Listen, I don't want the activation." Right? So, we had a huge problem of that, and 85% was the conversion that we were getting. What we did was, and the AOV out there used to be $4,500 the customer was to pay. Okay. So what we did was we brought in a concept of minimum recharge, right? Which means that we took some money from the customer to essentially ensure that we have skin in the game, right? I mean, so my question, and the moment we did this, our business still stayed where it was. Okay. But our login to activation ratio moved from 85 to 98-99% right now. Right. So we saw a huge jump. My question or reflection that I would want from you guys is that do we have to be either this way or that way, or is there a midpoint in between? I mean, here is a guy has put in, let's say for instance the AOV is let's say for instance $600 as I hypothetically. The guy has paid let's say $50. Okay. But the guy has demonstrated, and that is also returnable, right? I mean, if you don't want to cross,
yeah, there is some commitment.
I think there are some brands that do try this.
So why should there not be
pre-order?
Pre-order.
Especially for the AOV products also, right? We 15,000 का product ship करना है तो technically basis करते हैं.
So my question is that why we should not try something of this sort to balance it out rather than pretty much either this way or that way.
Try कर सकते हो, but if it's a high AOV product, maybe I'll pay. If it's a low AOV product, my behavior is such that I will not pay. As a customer, I will not pay.
It's a consumer behavior thing.
I will not
drop off बढ़ जाएगा.
Sometimes 15,000 की product है तो I understand why they would take some money from me. It's a big product, huge shipping, etc. But if it's 500, 600,
300-400 का product है तो 300-400 का है तो मैं खुद पेमेंट पूरा ही कर दूंगा, 50 रुपया क्यों करूँ?
हाँ, exactly.
If sometimes people are not paying because of their wallet is away from them, उसके लिए 100 रुपये भी उतना प्रॉब्लम है, पूरा प्रोडक्ट
और अगर 15,000 का ले रही हो तो आप प्लान कर सकते हो.
then you can plan it.
And there are some brands that have cracked this, right? Like where they say, if it's a COD order, pay 100 rupees in advance and you pay the rest, once it's there.
Essentially, the rule of the business is that if it's a high involvement business, take money. If it's a low involvement kind of a business,
it's an unnecessary friction point you're adding. That is, you're risking a drop off there.
What is the least number of clicks I can get a customer to do to engage in?
Yeah. That funnel needs to be as clean as possible.
I mean, we did it for a brand called Radiohead, which is into
Yeah.
So what we did is the product ticket size is $1,500. So what we did is we take 300 bucks, for COD in advance. That is with us work out very well. So we've seen an increase in 20%.
But how did you get them to do that?
Yeah, so we did a pop-up wherein that they'll get directly 10% off if they pay.
If they pay 300.
Yeah, even we have put up a plugin called Season, which is EMI options also. This kind of thing is on Shopify. Yeah, it's on Shopify. We are on Shopify.
And you got better results.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. This was super fun. Really didn't expect this much of an interaction, but I think I've learned a bunch of stuff. I hope some of you did as well. And thank you so much for making the time.